On the cold night of December 28, 1956, two sisters, Barbara Grimes, 15, and Patricia Grimes, 12, were last seen heading out in the bitter Chicago winter to do what they loved most, watching Elvis Presley on the big screen. It would be their 11th time viewing their favorite Elvis movie, Love Me Tender. Barbara and Patricia were more than sisters. They were inseparable, best friends, and die-hard Elvis fans who had just joined his official fan club. That night, they left their modest home in the Brighton Park neighborhood of Chicago around 7:30 p.m., promising their mother they'd be back before midnight. The Brighton Theater was approximately a mile and a half away, close enough to walk, or maybe they caught the bus, but no one knows for sure how they traveled there. As the night unfolded, witnesses would later confirm the girls had made it to the theater. One of Patricia's classmates told police she saw them sitting a few rows behind her during the show. Around 9:30 p.m., during the intermission, that same classmate left the theater. As she walked through the lobby, she spotted Barbara and Patricia standing in line for snacks. They were smiling, laughing, and in good spirits. Just two young girls enjoying a movie night, exactly where they were supposed to be. But by midnight, Loretta Grimes felt that deep, unshakable worry that something was wrong, the kind only a parent knows. She sent her oldest daughter, 17-year-old Teresa, along with 14-year-old Joey, to wait for them at the nearest bus stop. One bus came, then another, and another, but no sign of Barbara or Patricia. By 2:15 a.m., December 29, 1956, Loretta Grimes stood inside a Chicago police station, filing a missing persons report for both of her daughters. And just like that, the nightmare began. What followed was one of the largest missing persons investigations in Cook County history. The city of Chicago police launched a full-scale search within hours. Hundreds of officers were assigned to the case. Door-to-door canvases swept through the Grimes Brighton Park neighborhood. Rivers and canals were dredged. Over 15,000 flyers were printed and passed out across the city. People hoped they'd just run off to see Elvis in another town. That maybe this was a harmless teenage adventure. Even the Grimes family's church congregation stepped in, offering a $1,000 reward for any information that might bring the girls home. But real leads were hard to come by. A few teenagers who'd been at the Brighton Theater that night told police they saw Barbara and Patricia outside after the movie, speaking with a young man. According to their story, the girls eventually got into his car. And what stood out most was the man's appearance. He had dark hair, sideburns, and a swagger that reminded people of Elvis Presley. Multiple witnesses described the man's vehicle the same way, always a Mercury. Witnesses claimed to see the girls in different parts of the city, sometimes together, sometimes apart. Some said they were in diners. Others swore they saw them at bus stops or walking down busy Chicago streets. The volume of sightings fed into an early theory that Barbara and Patricia weren't abducted at all. That maybe, just maybe, they had run away. The media frenzy intensified. Their faces were on front pages. Radios buzzed with updates. And the story went national. Even Elvis Presley himself made a public plea, urging the girls, if they were out there, to come home. But what happened next only added another strange twist to an already baffling case. Ann Landers, the well-known advice columnist for the Chicago Sun-Times, received a mysterious anonymous letter. The writer claimed to be a teenage girl, someone who had witnessed Barbara and Patricia being forced into a car by a young man on the night they disappeared. The letter even included a partial license plate number. Outside the show, we all got to talking and we exchanged phone numbers. When we got to the street where we turned off, we said goodbye and we ran across the street. Then Betty forgot something she had to tell Barbara, and we ran back to the corner. A man about 22 or 25 was talking to them. He pushed Barbara in the back seat of the car and Pat in the front seat. We got part of the license number as the car drove by us. The first four numbers were 2184. Betty thinks there were 3 or 4 numbers after that. When we heard that they were missing, we didn't know what to do. It seemed promising, but just like so many things in this case, it led nowhere. Unfortunately, police were never able to trace the partial plate to a specific vehicle. The tip fizzled, and the writer of the letter, whoever they were, was never identified. Nearly a month after Barbara and Patricia went missing, Chicago's snow began to melt. On the morning of January 22, 1957, a man named Leonard Prescott was driving along a quiet stretch of road just outside the city. Something caught his eye, just beyond the guardrail. Something that didn't belong. It unsettled him so much he returned later with his wife, Marie. Together, they stepped closer. There, in the frozen brush, were the bodies of Barbara and Patricia Grimes. Marie fainted at the sight. Leonard ran to call police. It was the girl's father, Joseph Grimes, who met officers at the scene. He had to do what no parent ever should: confirm that his daughters were gone. Investigators believed the girls had been driven to that location. Their bodies appeared to have been dragged, or thrown, from a vehicle. Barbara had 3 small wounds to her chest, consistent with an ice pick. Her face and head showed signs of blunt trauma. Patricia's body was bruised, severely. More than 150 officers searched the area for evidence. They found nothing. No footprints, no weapon, and no physical clues. As the years passed, there were suspects, there were theories, there were promises, but no arrests. And today, nearly 7 decades later, the murder of Barbara and Patricia Grimes remains one of Chicago's most heartbreaking and haunting unsolved cases. On the night of November 1st, 2007, 12-year-old Jaliek Rainwalker vanished from a quiet home in Greenwich, New York. The last person to see him alive was his adoptive father, Stephen Kerr, the only adult in the house that night. By morning, Jaliek was gone. Kerr claimed he discovered a handwritten note around 7:30 the next morning. In a child's handwriting, it read, "Dear everybody, I'm sorry for everything. I won't be a bother anymore. Goodbye, Jaliek." Exactly 1 hour later, at 8:57 a.m., Stephen Kerr called police to report his son missing. Jaliek had been living with Kerr and his wife, Jocelyn McDonald, for 5 years. But his life had been turbulent long before that. Born addicted to drugs, Jaliek had been removed from his biological mother's care and placed into the foster system at just a few days old. In the years that followed, he would cycle through 6 different foster homes. Those who knew him described a complicated child, brilliant, clever, even funny, but one who carried obvious emotional scars. For 4 years, Jody and Larry Schoen were Jaliek's foster parents. They loved him. They hoped to adopt him. But as he grew older, his behavior became increasingly difficult to manage. One day, when Jaliek was just 7 years old, he attacked their daughter without warning. Heartbroken, the Schoens made the painful decision to remove him from their home. Jaliek was eventually placed with the Kerr-McDonald family: Stephen, Jocelyn, their 3 biological sons, and 1 adopted daughter. But his new home brought little peace. Stephen Kerr and Jocelyn McDonald described Jaliek as volatile, a child prone to explosive, violent outbursts that terrified the other children in their home. They said they lived in fear of him, and that his behavior was spiraling beyond their control. But the environment Jaliek was living in was unusual even by unconventional standards. Tucked away in rural New York, the family home had no running water. They used outhouses instead of toilets. Electricity came from a gas-powered generator, running just a few hours each day. The couple said it was all part of a conscious choice to live off the grid for the sake of the planet. But it wasn't the remote lifestyle that concerned people most. It was what was happening inside the house. Despite his troubling behavior, Jaliek wasn't receiving therapy. He wasn't on medication. There was no visible plan to support his mental health. Then just 9 days before Jaliek disappeared on October 23, 2007, Stephen Kerr picked up the phone and called a crisis hotline. He said Jaliek had become unmanageable. He'd allegedly threatened a younger child in their homeschool group. Jocelyn, he said, was afraid. She wanted Jaliek out of the house. Kerr even asked to reverse the adoption, but was told that legally, it couldn't be undone. The only option offered was respite care, a short-term placement in a familiar, stable home. That's how Jaliek ended up with Tom and Elaine Person, trusted former foster parents who had once cared deeply for him. He stayed with them until November 1st. That day, the Persons returned Jaliek to Kerr, who told them he was planning to place him in another respite home the following day. But that day never came. Just hours later, Jaliek Rainwalker was missing. When Kerr called 911 to report Jaliek's disappearance, a search was launched immediately. Police combed the woods, scanned the river, and flew over the surrounding area by helicopter. But days passed. Then weeks. No trace. No clue. No Jaliek. Whispers turned into suspicion of foul play. Still, there were those who clung to the idea that Jaliek might have simply run away. That hope would soon be tested. Jocelyn McDonald agreed to take a polygraph, but Stephen Kerr refused. Still, both stuck to the same story. Jaliek had run away. But almost immediately, that story began to unravel. The first serious doubts came from Tom and Elaine Person, Jaliek's former respite caregivers. They believed the so-called goodbye note found in Kerr's home wasn't a farewell at all. Elaine said Stephen Kerr had instructed Jaliek to write apology letters to people he had hurt. part of a behavioral exercise. Tom remembered seeing Jaliek write one of those letters days before he disappeared. He hadn't read the contents, but he was sure of one thing. That note wasn't written the night Jaliek vanished. They believed it was the same letter Kerr later presented as a goodbye. Elaine refused to stay quiet. She launched a website to raise awareness and made her belief crystal clear. She believed Stephen Kerr had harmed Jaliek on the night of November 1st. In January 2008, police officially named Stephen Kerr a person of interest. Surveillance footage surfaced showing Kerr driving his van through Greenwich after midnight on the night Jaliek disappeared, a time when he claimed to be asleep. Cell phone data contradicted his story, placing him on a different route than he had told police. And then, things got even stranger. That same month, local news outlets received a typed, anonymous letter postmarked from Westchester County, New York. Jaliek's still alive, needed a foot soldier for this war on drugs. Picked him up Route 40 Post 30. He's okay, no fake. He says ask his mama and papa who are the Macaroni family. My cat named Diamond. Why does Franti yell fire? Don't try to look. We are not there. Police didn't know what to make of the letter. They traced the postmark but found nothing. No fingerprints, no follow-up letter, no sign of Jaliek, and the tip went cold. In February 2008, investigators executed a search warrant at the home of Stephen Kerr's father. They seized a computer, hoping to find a connection to the strange anonymous note, but no definitive link was ever found. Through it all, one voice never stopped calling for justice. Barbara Reilly, Jaliek's adoptive maternal grandmother, became one of his fiercest advocates. She even filed for custody, hoping to give Jaliek a safe, loving home. The courts denied her request, but Barbara never gave up. She kept searching, kept fighting. Barbara also spoke out about the family dynamics behind closed doors. She claimed Kerr had serious anger issues and had even been in counseling. Twice in 2007, she said, Jocelyn McDonald had asked him to leave the home because of his behavior. But one moment haunted Barbara more than any other. She recalled seeing Stephen Kerr, in a fit of rage, drag Jaliek outside and force him into a nearby creek. The investigation would go quiet. For years, no arrests, no breakthroughs. Then, in October 2024, a glimmer of hope, or heartbreak. Skeletal remains were discovered near Burden Pond in Troy, New York, close to an area that had previously been searched. As of now, the DNA test results have not been released. No one has been charged. No one has been held accountable. And Jaliek Rainwalker's disappearance remains unsolved. It began with a kidnapping, but what followed was something far stranger and far more chilling. On the evening of March 18, 1984, masked intruders broke into the home of Katsuhisa Izaki, the president of the major Japanese candy company Glico. They tied up his wife and daughter, then forced Izaki from his own home at gunpoint. He was taken to a remote warehouse and held captive for 3 days. The demand for his release was a ransom of 1 billion yen, approximately $5 million at the time, along with 100 kilograms of gold bullion. But before the ransom could be paid, Izaki escaped. It should have been the end of the story, but it was only the beginning. What followed was a series of threats, poisoned candy, and mocking letters signed by a mysterious group calling themselves the Monster with 21 Faces. They claimed responsibility not only for the kidnapping, but for planting potassium cyanide in Glico candies, and later in products from Morinaga, another major confectionery company. Panicked shoppers emptied store shelves. Entire product lines were recalled. Trust in Japanese household brands began to collapse. The Monster with 21 Faces didn't stop there. They taunted police in bizarre letters, calling them fools, challenging them to catch a ghost. On April 8, 1984, the Monster with 21 Faces sent a letter to police which read, "To the police fools, are you all stupid? What the hell are you doing with all that manpower? If you're professionals, then come on, catch us. We'll give you a hint since you're so handicapped. There are none of us among Izaki's relatives. There are none of us among the Nishinomiya police. There are none of us among the Flood Prevention Corps. The car I bought was gray, and the food I bought was from Daiei. If you want more information, ask us for it in the newspapers. After telling you all this, you should be able to catch us. If you can't, then you're just tax leeches. Shall we kidnap the head of the prefectural police too?" The next threatening letter arrived at the Tokyo home of Morinaga Dairy Vice President Mitsuo Yamada on November 1st, 1984. "To President, you saw our power, didn't you? If you disobey us, we will destroy your company. You will get killed. Decide whether you want to give us money or do you want to see your company destroyed. Tell us in the Mainichi newspaper on either the 5th or 6th of November. Use the missing persons. Use these words in the reply. Jiro, Morinaga, mother, police, bad friend, money, meal. As we said before, we want 200 million yen. Monster with 21 faces. Despite enormous media attention and one of the most intense manhunts in Japanese history, the group was never caught. Surveillance footage caught a man now known as the Fox-Eyed Man, believed to be one of the ringleaders, but he was never identified. Every lead ended in a dead end. The toll was devastating. In 1985, the superintendent of the Shiga Prefectural Police, Shoji Yamamoto, took his own life. He left behind a note apologizing for failing to bring the criminals to justice. Shortly after, the monster with 21 faces released one final message. Yamamoto of Shiga Prefecture Police died. How stupid of him. We've got no friends or secret hiding place in Shiga. It's Yoshino or Shikata who should have died. What have they been doing for as long as 1 year and 5 months? Don't let bad guys like us get away with it. There are many more fools who want to copy us. No career Yamamoto died like a man. So we decided to give our condolence. We decided to forget about torturing food-making companies. If anyone blackmails any of the food-making companies, it's not us, but someone copying us. We are bad guys. That means we've got more to do other than bullying companies. It's fun to lead a bad man's life. And then, just like that, they vanished. To this day, the true identities of the group remain unknown. No one was ever arrested, and the case officially remains unsolved.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Fireside Unsolved. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to help the channel grow. Until next time, take it easy and be easy, you filthy bastards.